Today I'm talking all about the NFC North in part 3 of Courtside's 10-part 2019 NFL preview. The Saints and Falcons are both looking pretty good heading into the season, and I'll tell you who I have coming out on top. And I'll tell you why the Panthers are destined for a 4th place finish in the NFC South division. So sit back, relax, and take a seat. Courtside. Hello there and welcome to episode 28 of Courtside. I'm your host, Andrew Cohen. Today's NFC South Day, part 3 of the Courtside 10-part 2019 NFL preview. Monday, talked about the NFC East. Yesterday, Tuesday, talked about the NFC North. And today, talking about the NFC South. If you've not already, I highly recommend you go check out parts 1 and 2 of the NFL preview for this year. And if you've been enjoying all the content recently, go ahead, subscribe to the podcast wherever you may be listening. Again, here's how I'm doing these episodes. I'll spend 4, 5, 6 minutes talking about every team in their respective divisions. And for each team, I'm going to give 3 players and or storylines to watch. And then I'll give you my projected final record for that team. And to predict these final records, I went through and predicted every single game for the 2019 NFL season. Do I think I'll be right on every single game? No. But I do think it gives me a nice baseline as far as where I can look to predict the team's final records. And now, without further ado, let's get into the team I have finishing first in the NFC South division, the Atlanta Falcons. Number one thing to watch with this team is the return of a few key injured players from 2018. Specifically on the defensive side of the ball, you have linebacker Deion Jones, who was a Pro Bowler in 2017, really emerged as one of the best young linebackers in the league. Last year, he only played 6 games with a foot injury. He went on IR after week 1, came back, wasn't really himself. I'm really looking for him to bounce back this year, hopefully play all 16 games or close to that, and really have an impact on this defense. There's also strong safety Keanu Neal, also a Pro Bowler in 2017. He tore his ACL in the week 1 game against the Eagles last year. He was out for the year. So that was a big blow right at the starting strong safety. And then also the starting free safety, Ricardo Allen. Only played 3 games last year. Then he went down, and that was pretty much it. I mean, that was his season, right? You also had Devontae Freeman coming back, Pro Bowler 2015-16, still very solid in 2017. Only played in weeks 1 and 5 in 2018, so hopefully he can bounce back. No more Tevin Coleman there, so he's got to really step up and take over a true number 1 back workload. And the key thing here with the Falcons last year, and it wasn't like a completely disappointing season, but it definitely wasn't as good as I predicted it to be. By week 3 last year, they lost their starting middle linebacker, both their starting safeties. So you look at that, and the defense built around, for the most part, those 3 guys, as well as Desmond Trufant and Grady Jarrett. But 3 of the key 5 or 6 guys on that defense were out for the year, basically. That's tough to overcome for any team, any defense. So this year, I think it's going to be much different with those guys back in the mix. Speaking of the defense, number 2 thing I'm going to watch is the number 2 cornerback spot, because Robert Alford was the starting corner ever since 2014, was the starting cornerback alongside Desmond Trufant, provided stability to that position. He's gone. He signed a 3-year deal with the Cardinals in the offseason. So there's a question mark as far as who's going to replace him. They have 2018 second rounder Isaiah Oliver, 2019 4th rounder Kendall Sheffield, 2019 5th rounder Jordan Miller. Those are all young guys. Can they step up in such a short period of time into their careers? I don't know. There's also DeMonte Casey, who started 15 games with the absence of Keanu Neal and Ricardo Allen last year. He was very good. 7 picks, 10 defended passes, 82 combined tackles. So he's very good. But if he's making the shift to starting cornerback, that's going to be a tough transition. Generally, guys go the other way from corner to safety. So we'll see if he can make that transition, if that's what the Falcons ultimately end up doing. But I do want to see, can this number 2 corner, can somebody really step up and provide more stability to that position and replace the hole left by Robert Alford? Finally, number 3 storyline here is the offensive line. So 2019 NFL Draft, Falcons had 2 first-round picks and then did not pick again until the 4th round. And with those first 2 first-round picks, took offensive guard Chris Lindstrom at 14th overall and offensive tackle Caleb McGarry at 31st overall. So obviously the Falcons are very focused on making their offensive line a lot better this year. Now, just to note, Caleb McGarry has been dealing with a heart condition for the most part of the recent months. He's begun to play. Obviously the Falcons hope he can stay healthy and be on the field for them for years to come, but that is just something to keep in mind. But again, the draft picks signal a focus on the offensive line, and they'll add these two rookies with Jake Matthews and Alex Mack, who are both Pro Bowlers, as well as veteran offensive guard James Carpenter. So last year, the O-line gave 42 sacks for the Falcons. That was 20th in the league. So they have, a lot of sacks, and hopefully with these new guys in the mix, not giving up as many sacks, and the offense will be even more explosive than it was a year ago. Projected record for the Falcons, I have them at 11-5. The offense last year was amazing. Matt Ryan had the second best year of his career behind his MVP 2016 season. The defense is adding key three pieces back. And, it's not going to be a great defense. It's not as good as some other defenses in the NFC. It might be the best defense in their division. The Panthers defense might be a little bit better, but it's one of the better defenses in their division. It's going to be good enough to win games. Also, interesting note, the Falcons play 13 games this season in a dome, right? So they have their home stadium, I think it's Mercedes-Benz or whatever. That's a dome. So they have 8 games at home in a dome. 5 of their road games are also in a dome. Saints, Vikings, Colts, Texans, Cardinals. That really bodes well for them. And I expect a very strong season from the Atlanta Falcons this year. All right, next up, let's talk about the New Orleans Saints. Key thing to watch this year that I'm personally looking at, I'm very interested in. The third receiving option. So here are the top target and reception leaders last year for the Saints. Receiver Michael Thomas, 147 targets, 125 receptions. Alvin Kamara, 105 targets, 81 receptions. Then you have Benjamin Watson with a huge drop-off to 46 targets, 35 receptions. And then Traquan Smith, 44 targets, 28 receptions. So again, the drop-off from Kamara to Watson is huge. Absolutely huge. There's a difference here of 59 targets between Kamara and the next guy. And I don't have a problem with two guys getting the majority of the targets and receptions in an offense, but I would feel a lot better about it if it was a receiver and a tight end, or two receivers. I would feel a lot better about it if these were, actual receivers, not guys coming out of the backfield for the most part. And with that being said, this offense has been productive the last 2 years. Kamara has put up very similar numbers receiving-wise. Each of his 2 years, he's been very effective in the passing game. So I want to see, can another guy here step up and be the number 3 option, right? They signed Jared Cook to replace Watson. Ted Ginn is back and healthy. And Ted Ginn 2 years ago got 70 targets, right? So there was kind of a third receiving option 2 years ago. You also have Traquan Smith, third-round pick in 2018, heading into his second year. Hopefully he can build up a little bit more chemistry with Drew Brees and really start to have a bigger role in this offense. But I just think getting another guy involved a lot more could take this offense really to the next level. Another player I'm watching, Eric McCoy. So they drafted McCoy in the second round. Saints did not have a first-round pick because they traded up for Marcus Davenport last season, so they didn't have a first-round pick this year. So McCoy was their first pick in this draft, coming into the second round. They draft him at center to replace the now-retired Max Unger, a Pro Bowler last season, one of the highly respected centers in the league over the last decade or so. And with the exception of right tackle Ryan Ramczyk, every member of the Saints offensive line last year was a Pro Bowler. And even with that being said, Ramczyk is a great right tackle. I think Pro Football Focus had him ranked as the top run-blocking offensive lineman in the NFL. Every offensive line position, he was the best run blocker in 2018 according to Pro Football Focus. So the offensive line really is, I would argue it's the key reason as to how the Saints have had so much success over the past couple of years, running the football, passing the football. They've had a lot of success in that O-line. So the question is, can McCoy come in and contribute? Or is there going to just be, we have these two guys on the outside on both sides, right? 2 great tackles, 2 great guards, but then we're a little bit weak up the middle with the center. So I think, listen, he's a second-round pick, so obviously he's very highly regarded, but it'll be interesting to see how he fits in and how he'll replace the hole left by Max Unger. And 3, I just briefly mentioned him a bit ago, Marcus Davenport. I'm really looking for him this year because 2018 NFL Draft, the Saints moved up in the first round by trading their first-round pick in 2019 to go select Marcus Davenport. They left guys like Jair Alexander, Derwin James on the board, right? So some really talented young kids. And they take Davenport 15 in his first year. 0 starts, did play in 13 games, 4.5 sacks, 12 quarterback hits. Didn't have any impact in the playoffs. It was overall a disappointing season because it's one thing when you take a guy in the first round and you know you might need a little bit more time to work with him before he really steps up and comes into his own. But when you trade up for a guy and your Super Bowl window is a little small because your quarterback is aging, it seems you kind of want him to step up right away. You don't want to have to wait a couple years for him to really develop. And I'm not saying he's a draft bust because Cameron Jordan, who was a first-round pick in 2011 by the Saints, only had 1 sack his rookie year. So, and he started 15 games and played in all 16. So it's not like Davenport had the worst rookie season I've ever seen, right? But with Cameron Jordan's second season, he really stepped up, 8 sacks. In 2013, his third season, 12.5 sacks, was a Pro Bowler, right? So you want to see that development with Marcus Davenport, and you hope he develops on a level, even if it's just half as good as how Cameron Jordan developed. I would love to see that for Davenport. He would really help an already scary Saints pass rush that finished last year, tied 5th in sacks in the league with 49. So I want to see if he can really step up this year and come into his own. Projected record, I have them at 11-5. The only reason they come in second is just because of the NFL tiebreaker rules, which I incorporated into my predictions. One thing I would say is this. I have the Saints facing 8 teams, finishing over 500 this season, and that's been common for a lot of these top teams that are playing top teams from other divisions. But 6 of these 8 games are on the road. I only see them winning 2 of those road games. I see them beating the Seahawks early on in the year. I see them beating the Titans a little bit later. But I think the game against the Rams on the road, I think the game against the Bears on the road, Falcons on the road, I even think the game against the Jaguars in Jacksonville, those are all going to be tough games. Hard to see them winning more than one of those games. So offense is really solid, though. Defense could use some improvement overall, but they have some playmakers, right? Cameron Jordan, Marshawn Lattimore. So the defense, if it was a little bit stronger, I could see them winning some more games on the road. But, it takes a strong defense to win road games. And a team that plays home games in their dome especially is going to need a strong defense to win on the road. But Saints at 11-5, very good team heading into 2019. I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming in third place in the NFC South above the Panthers. I mentioned it in the intro. I have the Panthers in last, but let's talk about the Buccaneers. Let's focus on them for a bit. Biggest thing with this team this year that's going to hinder their success will be the defense. They lost Gerald McCoy, replaced him with Ndamukong Suh. Let's just say that's a wash, okay? Let's say that's a wash. Levante David currently recovering from offseason knee surgery. Jason Pierre-Paul trying to return from a neck injury. They lost Quan Alexander to the 49ers. So the defense is pretty similar to last year overall, right? Again, you switch out Suh for McCoy. You lost Quan Alexander, but they did draft Devin White in the first round, I believe 5th overall. So it's pretty similar, in general, but I think that's the problem. They allowed 29 points per game last season. That was only 0.2 points worse than the Raiders, who gave the most points per game. Key guys are coming back hurt. It's a very similar depth chart. And in the secondary, I want to believe in Vernon Hargreaves for our number 11 overall pick at cornerback. I want to believe in him. He's the number 1 corner, and he just has not lived up to expectations. And again, I would love to see him step up and come into his own this year, but there's not much reason to believe that he will. So that's a little concerning. I mean, they do have Todd Bowles there as the defensive coordinator now. I like him a lot more than the old Buccaneers defensive coordinator. But just no matter how you slice it, the defense is just not going to be good. It's going to be porous. It's going to be giving up a lot of big time passing yards, and it's going to be the main reason the Bucs will lose games this year. Number 2 thing, I briefly mentioned it, but coaching. The Bucs fired Lovie Smith just 2 years into his 4-year contract. His second and final season was Jameis Winston's rookie season. Winston was a Pro Bowler that year, and has not been a Pro Bowler since. And right after Lovie Smith was fired, you had players in the team, including Levante David and Gerald McCoy, that were very vocal about their anger towards the situation. I mean, they were going on social media and really kind of criticizing the decision to move on from Lovie Smith. And then he was replaced by Dirk Cutter, and I hated the decision at the time. Of course, I didn't do the podcast back then, so I didn't voice it, but I hated that decision. Continued to hate the decision throughout his tenure. And finally, the Bucs made the right decision and kicked him to the curb. So I think firing Dirk Cutter was a great move. They replaced him with Bruce Arians. And, Jameis Winston, Mike Evans, they're talking a lot and talking very positively about the new coaching staff. And it's not just they're talking positively about the coaching staff. It just feels like the more positive they talk about the current staff, it's like more negative towards the previous staff, which I think is really interesting. I just don't think anybody was happy with Dirk Cutter, and replacing with Bruce Arians just makes the whole situation really, really good and really, really positive there in Tampa. And let's move on to Jameis Winston, who I think is the obvious guy to watch this year in Tampa. Contract year, former number 1 overall pick. He hasn't lived up to the expectations of a number 1 pick for sure. But I think it's very interesting to see what Tampa will do in the offseason. Now, listen, if he plays well, he'll get the contract. He'll be there for the next few years. If he doesn't play well, maybe Tampa looks at moving on from him and going and looking for a rookie quarterback in the draft. Maybe looking at a Marcus Mariota for some reason. I don't know, right? Looking at free agency. Now, I think he is going to play well. I think Bruce Arians, listen, he's done a great job with his quarterbacks in the past, right? Carson Palmer and Andrew Luck had some great seasons under the coaching of Arians. I expect the offense to be pretty electric this year. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin at receiver, O.J. Howard, Cameron Braid at tight end. The offensive line is a couple solid guys with Ali Marpet and DeMar Dotson. The running back, Peyton Barber, he's not very good. He's like the most average running back you could possibly be. Former second round pick Ronald Jones, he stunk last year. Hasn't necessarily impressed in the preseason, but Arians talks a lot. Talks very positively about him and what he's been doing in camp. So maybe he has some potential. We'll see what he can do. Overall, I have their record at 5-11. And that's the exact same record as last year, but here's the problem. The defense isn't going to improve. The offense will, but it just doesn't matter if their defense is bad. I have been playing 10 games against teams that are going to finish with at least an 8-8 record. The only way to beat how I see it is when you're not as good as another team, the way you can beat a team better than you is by really locking down on defense, controlling the pace, being able to run the football. And the two weakest parts of this team for the Bucs, defense and the running game. So that's going to cost them a lot of games. However, I see Winston being really good. I see Mike Evans having a big year. I see Chris Godwin having an awesome year. So if they can rebuild the defense in the next couple of years, like how the Packers did with their defense, right, going through the draft, making good picks, knowing the positions they wanted to target, and now the Packers defense is really strong, I hope the Bucs can do that in the coming years because I think Winston's a good talent. They have some great talent on the outside as well, and a good head coach. But again, Bucs 5-11 in 2019. And now let's talk about the Carolina Panthers, who I have finishing 4th in the NFC South division, even though they seem to have a good roster. Now I'll start off with the positives. The defense is pretty strong, especially in that front seven. They have Dontari Poe, Kawan Short, Mario Addison, Shaq Thompson, Luke Kuechly. All those guys are returning. They've added Gerald McCoy. They've added Bruce Irvin. The only guy they lost was Thomas Davis, who was a veteran, right? His best days are behind him. The defense isn't flashy, but it's going to get the job done, right? It's going to get the job done. And I like that about this Panthers team. I do. Here's the thing. I rave about their front seven. I say it's very good. They only had 35 sacks last year, right? What I want a front seven is I want a front seven that even if the sacks aren't there, I need you to consistently pressure the quarterback. I don't think they really did that in 2018. So if they can improve that this year, that'd be great. Bruce Irvin and Gerald McCoy can both get to the quarterback. And they're going to need to, I think, for this defense to really, truly improve. I don't see them competing for a playoff spot, but if the defense plays, exceptionally well, maybe. But again, I really do like this front seven. But now into the negatives. Cam Newton. Injuries is really the story here with Cam Newton. dealt with a shoulder injury for most of last year. He's still recovering from that, by the way. That's not completely gone away. Suffered a sprained foot in the preseason, and we can have a whole conversation about starters and specifically starting quarterbacks starting in the preseason. Not going to open up that can of worms today. But again, suffered a sprained foot in the preseason. Did return to practice today. And the Panthers are saying he's going to be available week 1. But I question if I doubt he's at 100% week 1. For the first couple weeks, I doubt he's at 100%. So, again, injuries. It's the story with Cam Newton. And here's the other thing, too. And this is the thing with Cam Newton where a lot of people talk about him like it's still 2015, when he was the MVP of the league, 15-1 record, led his team to the Super Bowl. They did lose, but it was a tremendous season that year. Since then, he's been serviceable. He's been okay. Hasn't been anything special. 2015, 53% completions, 3,500 yards, 19 touchdowns to 14 picks. That followed up his MVP year. 26, and then in 2017, 59 completion percentage, 3,300 yards, 22 touchdowns to 16 picks. He arguably got worse than he was in 2016, which obviously was worse than 2015. And then last year, he had a fine season, 68% completions, 3,400 yards, 24 touchdowns to 13 picks. And he doesn't have any good passing seasons over the past 3 years. His best passing season was 2015. He won MVP. That's not a coincidence. If he can pass the ball, he's talented enough to. He runs. He can help you win games, but he can't. He just has not been a consistent passer over the past 3 years. Yet everybody continues to talk this guy up and talk about how he's one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league. He's not. He's average at best. And I get he's very good at running, very good at just taking off and getting out of the pocket and picking up extra yards with his legs. That's one of the main reasons he consistently gets hurt, right? And that's why he got hurt in the preseason. He was trying to run out of a rush, run out of a blitz, and ended up going for a little bit too long instead of just taking a knee and going down. It was the preseason. So, listen, I think by the end of the year, we're talking about Cam Newton as the 4th best quarterback in this division. I think Jameis Winston overtakes him. I think arguably Jameis Winston's already better than him when it comes to throwing the football for sure. And Cam Newton, I think he's on pace for a decline this year. The injuries, I think, are really going to catch up to him, and the schedule is tough. But Cam Newton specifically is one of the reasons I have the Panthers finishing in 4th in the NFC South. And finally, it's the offensive playmakers that kind of bother me a little bit about this team. Now, listen, I love some of the guys Cam Newton's throwing the ball to. I love Christian McCaffrey at running back. I love DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel at receiver. Those guys are all small. They're fast. They're versatile. But they let Devin Funchess go this offseason, and he was their big target, right? Size-wise, you could just throw it up to him. He could make a catch now. Did you have talent to do that? I'm not sure, but there was at least the threat of it. Now this year, they're bringing back Greg Olsen, and his last year has been riddled by injuries. He's 34 years old now. He's definitely lost a step. I mean, here's the list of injuries over the past 2 seasons. 2017, fractures his right foot. 2018, fractures his right foot. Comes back at the end of 2018, and then ruptured the plantar fascia on his right foot. That seems serious. So you're telling me this guy's going to come back and be the Greg Olsen from a few years ago when he was a Pro Bowler? No way. I don't buy it. And it's like I talked about the Cowboys with Jason Witten. Jason Witten, okay, he's nice to have, but don't try to put him into the offense and say this guy's going to be our safety blanket, our go-to guy. Clutch moments of the games. This is one of the guys we're looking for. No, I said with the Cowboys, look for Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, Randall Cobb. Your offense will be more successful. And I want to say here, look for DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, and Christian McCaffrey. But I don't see a big-bodied threat in this offense. There really just isn't one. And that is kind of concerning for me. Right, where you have Julio Jones, Michael Thomas, and Mike Evans in this division, there's no top receiver here. Curtis Samuel and DJ Moore are both really good players. I like them both. Neither of them are big-time number 1 receivers. So, listen, again, Olsen's not as quick as he once was. I don't think they should rely on him because I don't think he's going to be very effective. I have the Panthers at 4-12, and I see a slow start, mainly because of Cam Newton's health. I think he's going to take a little bit to recover from the sprained foot, the shoulder. He's just not going to be 100% for a while. We'll have to see if he re-injures something or gets a new injury. I'm not trying, I don't want to predict injuries, but the guy has he has 2 pre-existing injuries right now. It's not wildly out of sorts to say he could re-injure something. They have a very tough schedule. 11 games versus teams finishing at least 500. Listen, they have a good defense, right? I do say, right, good running game, good defense can win you games against tough teams. But I think at a certain point it wears out. And Christian McCaffrey isn't a guy that I don't feel like he could handle 250, 300 carries per season. I don't feel like he could take 25 carries per week, and they've already said they're going to give him fewer carries this year. So, again, I just think the offense this year is going to be the big problem for the Panthers, and it's why I have them finishing 4-12 and finishing in 4th in the NFC South division. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this edition of Courtside, Part 3 of the NFL preview this year on Courtside. Tomorrow, I'm going to be talking all about the NFC West. You don't want to miss it. And if you have not already, go check out Parts 1 and 2 of this NFL preview. As usual, subscribe to the podcast wherever you may be listening. If you're on YouTube, leave a like. Go check out the Twitter at the Courtside Pod. Link will be in the description. Signing off, this is Andrew Cohen. I'll see you next time.